When I was 7, my mom worked the midnight shift and she always said, "Don't open the door." I thought she meant strangers until one night someone knocked, calling me by name, and I realized what she'd been protecting me from all along.
I heard Mom moving in the night. It wasn't so late out. At least I don't remember it that way when it all started. Mr. Param, the owner of the lot, would always turn off the lights at 10 p.m. and everything would go pitch black. It was at that time when we would rely on the porch lights, some working, some not, to navigate around the trailers whenever we came back from my mom's work and came back late. But the rent was due, and I knew how Mom would get around those times, so I stayed quiet, though she knew I wasn't asleep. She was able to get those extra shifts and had taken a short nap on the couch before heading out again. I heard her walk up to the room we shared. "I'm leaving now. Mama loves you." And then I whispered the rest. "Don't open the door, don't turn on the stove, don't answer the phone, my work number's on the counter." I had heard her tell me this 1,000 times, but had no idea of just how important it was to get it right. My name is Edwin, and here's a scary story. I took the blanket off my face and shouted bye, looking at the clock for just an instant, too fast to remember what it said. 6 hours, I told myself. It was the amount of hours Mom would get at her shift. I knew when she would come back. The red light from the old lady's window was shining through the spaces of the missing blinds on mine. They came from the lady who lived next to us, Dora. "The red light lets you see in the dark, honey," she told me as I watched a group of moths circling it one time. And I believed her. And I later found out why. It wasn't that it was red, but that it was light. It reminded me of the lights from the sign of the liquor store when I'd wait in the truck alone. Dad would take a long time in there. He would come back real quiet, with an unopened bag of Cheetos or half a Hot Pocket and hand it to me. His face would change. Something would be different in the way that he got in his seat. I knew the smell on him wasn't perfume, although now I know that it could have been that too. But I don't remember the fights anymore. Things got better once he started picking me up on Saturdays, for all of us. And if you looked at our lives back then, you would think Mom got the worst of it. Keeping up with me and the babysitters that wouldn't show up, the many times I got sick and woke up with nightmares. But she never complained. When we had to go to the lawyer's offices and talk with people, Mom stopped all of it once they started asking me too many questions. "He's just a child, let it go," she would tell them. And they would say that they needed it for discovery, but Mom never stopped. Until suddenly there were no more visits across town in offices where everyone looked like they were dressed for a funeral. But it would be just us now. She knew the effects that the questioning would have on me, and to this day I thank her for that. But I still relive them. In far and distant dreams they come back. In them, I'm sitting at a desk trying to remember these details. That I'm sitting in the car as Dad leaves, that red light shining into the back seat as men come and go drinking from paper bags, leaning on my dad's truck. Some of them smoking. Some speak to each other, others don't. Bad words and spit coming from the same place. Like ants who find sugar, some arriving and some leaving out of that liquor store. There was one time when I was all alone out there. I remember it was raining. Dad had stopped the truck and rushed inside, and he told me he would be right back and shut the door. I was able to watch as the drops of water rolled down the inside of the car and spread where the glass met the rubber thanks to that red light. The door had been open for an instant, and it was enough to stain the window with streaks from the inside. Cars sped on by along that highway behind the parking lot, with the occasional rumble of a semi. Most of the time, the memories stop right there. Sometimes, they keep going. I try not to think about it that much, especially that night as I waited for Mom for those long 6 hours. I kind of knew when she would come back. One of the guys from around the trailer park would start up his truck early in the morning. He worked where Mom did, but would start at a different time. And so I was there looking at that dirty window with the red light, Water trails from the last time it rained still stuck against it. I thought of how Dad's number was also on the counter, a large arrow on it that said, "Dial this part first." His writing. He lived in a different area code, but all I knew at the time was that calling him was more expensive or that I'd have to wait for him to call. Big rig honked in the distance as I stared, and it snapped me back into those old thoughts. Suddenly the fan sounded like rain, and the red light from the window read Eddie's Liquor. Shadows passed in front of it, and all I could do was raise my chin to see the heads of those who walked by close to the truck. Now, this I share from vanishing memories. They're like birds I catch with my bare hands and try not to kill them as I squeeze for more details, just hard enough to let me remember that I lived when I was 7 years old. And then I let go and wait for the chance that another brave one arrives to take a seed from the palm of my hand. I jumped up when I saw the man's face against the glass of my dad's truck. His face, to this day, was the one with the most wrinkles I had ever seen. More than Dora's or the man in the wheelchair that asked for coins outside the laundromat. His smile spread from ear to ear and scattered yellow teeth. Not missing, there were many of them, but apart from each other, on his black gums. "You Henry's kid, aren't ya?" he shouted, hissing like a flat tire against the rain. I looked at him with wide eyes. "I don't bite," he yelled, as he showed me his teeth, chuckling in a way I had only heard in an old music video, the one where the masked figure laughs and fades into the next song. I didn't say a word as I looked at him, hoping that my dad would come out now. Maybe he would tap that other man's shoulder and they would say hi to each other, introducing me to him, make me shake his hand. I could almost hear him cheering me on to squeeze tighter then. But Dad never came. And then I hoped for this man to look up at the dark sky, curse the rain, and run toward the liquor store. But he was unbothered by it, even as it dripped from the top to his bottom lip and then down his chin. His black hair stuck to his forehead and covered part of his left eye, but the one that I could see was black, pitch black, and I felt fear for the first time in my life. There was always something to watch out for back then, but strangers were a thing Mom always warned me about, just as much as she did about looking both ways before crossing the street. I looked away from his face and to the door lock knob that was sticking out an inch away from the glass. It was way too late for me to lock it. I didn't even know if I could reach it as he looked down at it and then at me. That smile. "Open the door, kid. Open the door," he said, his deep voice blending a little more now with the rain that tapped on the truck. But it was panic then. I gulped and crawled back as I felt the cold leather seat against my legs and back. And all he did was look at me, smiling. "Open the door, kid. Open the door," he said, just a little bit louder, his smile fading slowly from his face, eyebrows dropping closer to his dark eyes. But the door wasn't locked, and he could see it. He was going to open it at any moment. I had seen this in a movie. He would reach out for you, grab your legs, and then throw you on his shoulders as you screamed, and then you'd be thrown into another car and blindfolded. I'd heard through the other kids at my school that they would rip out your heart and sell it to rich people on the other side of town. That they would put it in the chests of their kids that were dying, and that you would be found a week later thrown in a river without it. I don't know why I didn't scream then. I heard him shouting to open the door. He knocked harder. His voice boomed through the glass and rocked the truck. I looked at him as his mouth dropped down to his neck and his tongue squirmed from side to side as he repeated it over and over. "Open it, kid. Open the door. Open the door, kid. Open it." Faster and faster he spoke. His knocks turned into pounding on that glass, so hard that it was about to break. I thought about it then, and it was thanks to those thoughts that I tried to scream, but all that came out were short gasps. I tried to look around him to see if anyone else walked around the parking lot or was coming out of the liquor store, but the rain and fog the man had made with his breath made it impossible. I put my hands over my ears and looked down, shutting my eyes tight, only opening them to make sure I was still inside that truck. I don't know how long I was doing that for, but I couldn't, for the life of me, look up toward him again. I remember those dim red lights, the way they turned a little bit brighter as I heard the pull of the door handle. The slow creak. I was bringing my legs closer to me, battling between holding my hands on my ears or using them to hold my knees against my chest. Tears were streaming down the sides of my face and down my nose. "Here," I heard another voice say. That's when I felt something against my leg and I looked. A hot pocket, right out of the microwave, half resting on my knee. That shook it a little before I grabbed it. It was still hot, still sealed. I stared at it as the lights faded when we got away from the streetlights. I thought of how Dad never asked me what happened, never told me he had seen someone out there. And I never brought it up. But I thought about it all night as I let my hot pocket get cold and eventually rot in the space between the bed and the wall. I wasn't sharing my room with Mom back then. And I was also marking the last time I would ever share food with Dad. There was always a worried look in Mom's eyes when she'd smile to say that she got a midnight shift. She knew that she would have to bring me back home, take the chance to rest, and then head back, leaving me by myself. Dora knew I was in there, though. I would see her peek through the window every once in a while. I remember how Dora woke us up early one morning, and Mom walked out to the front door, apologizing for not flipping our doormat by the door. It was a signal that Mom would leave for her to show that she had gotten home safe. That morning, I looked through the door frame and saw Dora put her hand on her chest, breathing deeply as a sign of relief. "Honey," I heard her say, whispering now. "I thought it was the..." Mom stopped her. "It's nothing. Thank you, Dora. I'm all right." "But honey, did you hear about the..." Mom stopped her again. "That's far away from here. We're all right. Everything's good. How about you?" Dora hesitated here, and Mom continued. "How's Davy?" It was her son. Dora paused for a little bit, but it would be enough to get her to change topics. She started saying how he was doing okay with his new business, and then complained about her daughter-in-law for a little bit. That's when I stopped listening and dozed off again. Mom needed more than hated that midnight shift. She would smile when she got calls about it. An extra $5.20 an hour would cover enough back then, but I could tell something bothered her about me being alone at home. Most days, when she would be out of the regular shift, I would wait for her at Douglas Donuts, just across the street, by the bus stop. There was a couple that owned the shop, and they would let me sit in one of the booths with my homework and pencils. The only rule was that if the place got too full and they needed a table, that I could go into their office desk and sit there. But it only happened one time, when a bunch of police officers came. It had been the first time I had seen a large group of people that knew each other be so quiet in the same place. And I remember thinking at that age that maybe police officers weren't allowed to talk to each other in public. Gary and Pam were their names, the owners of the donut shop. Mom had known both of them from back when Dad was still around, and they sided with Mom. I always wondered where Dad got his morning coffee after that. I would only wait for Mom for a few hours after school before she came to find me. I'd wait to see her cross the street as the sun was setting, except in the spring when it rained. It was then when I tried to rely on that clock. And on those dark days, the world ended across those foggy windows, and the splashing on the dark streets could have been a battle between sharks and crocodiles for all I knew. "Don't open the door, don't turn on the stove, don't answer the phone, my work number's on the counter." I was talking to myself now back in my room as I looked out toward the dirty window. I looked toward the clock, but I couldn't remember when Mom had left and when those 6 hours had started. "Don't open the door, don't turn on the stove, don't answer the phone, my work number's on the counter." I was whispering to myself just to hear something in the stillness of the night. "Don't open the door, don't turn on the stove, don't answer the phone, my work number's on the counter. Don't open the door, kid." I jolted up from bed. The fan was squeaking as it turned around the room, the only thing that moved against that dark red light. My heart was beginning to pound in my neck, and I could feel it squeezing it. "Open the door, kid." I heard it in that same hiss from long ago. I heard the knocking on the door soften up and then vanish. and I sat still, like waiting for Dad on Saturdays, never quite ready. Suddenly the room became dark, a large silhouette forming on the wall on the opposite side of the window, and I just froze, for just an instant. Then I turned my head toward the window all in one jolt before I changed my mind. There was nothing. Nothing but the red light with the tiny shadows circling around it, the same way they had been all night. The night before that one, for as long as I could remember. My back was against the wall now, looking around the room in all directions. The time said 3:42 a.m. now. The two red dots blinking like the eyes of a tilted head. I tried not to move as a pounding continued around the thin walls of the trailer until they were right behind me, striking deep into my back and through my chest. I leaned forward and tried to scream. I looked toward the window, in the direction of Dora, but all that came out were short gasps of air. I crawled on the bed toward it, toward that red light, and tried for that deep breath to scream as loud as I could, and yet, nothing. Again. I reached for the floor with my hands first before my socks hit the carpet and I stood up. I had made my mistake back then. I should have opened the other door of the truck and ran, and I should have kicked. I should have yelled. And had I told someone, had I told Mom, maybe I wouldn't be living with these nightmares. A year out of my life back then was a long time. And so I stood there, my face right up toward the window. I saw it. Him. The man with the wrinkled face through the broken blinds on the window. His teeth showing from ear to ear as he smiled and whispered now, "Open the door, kid." And I stood there, my eyes locked on his face, stepping back with every short inhale that I took in. I felt the edge of the bed and walked around it. The clock, now behind me, would have to wait until I could safely look at it. But I tried to scream. I opened my mouth and all that I could hear was air. It was stinging as it escaped directly from the back of my dry throat. I finally turned away toward the couch in her living room, and from that doorframe I caught a glimpse of the time. Just 3 more minutes before Mom would be making her way back home, I assumed. I was never ready for her either. It was always a wait, a surprise, whenever she came. Sometimes a little early or a little late. There was another bus she could take if she missed the first one. We couldn't see the man on the window anymore, and the room was filled with glowing red stripes like it usually did at night. "Ah, darn it," I heard a whisper from the front door, the handle jiggling open. It was Mom, followed by a deep sigh she would usually do when she got home. Door handle rattled, and then stopped unnaturally. But I didn't wait. I walked straight through the living room and grabbed the door handle and twisted it loosely. It wasn't locked. And I don't know why, in my young brain at the time, I thought about how I knew that it wasn't Mom at the door. I waited, my back against it as I heard the taps on it. It didn't take long before they turned into violent pounding in a deep voice yelling over and over, "Open the door, kid! Open the door!" I leaned against a now locked door and cried again, hands against my ears, waiting for that moment when the thing would break through a window and grab me by the legs, drag me into a car, to a place where they would rip out my heart and give it to a family on the other side of town. I don't know how long I was there for when I finally heard the gentle footsteps of Mom walking up the soft boards of the wooden steps, the ones that led to the entrance of our home. I heard as she moved the doormat to announce her arrival before the door unlocked and the latch clicked open. I moved out of the way when she stepped in, the door hiding my tears along with the darkness. "What's wrong, baby? What are you doing here?" she said, kneeling down, her hand over both of my hands around my head. "Tell me, what happened?" I couldn't say another word that night. She took me into the room and wrapped me up like a burrito on the side of the bed as she waited. She assumed it had been a nightmare, that I had gotten scared while she was gone, that everything was going to be okay, she said, that she would no longer take those midnight shifts. But still I couldn't find a way to say what I had seen out loud. It was a Sunday morning then. and Dora next door was getting ready for church. She would always stop by to invite Mom, but Mom would say that she would go to the service at 4, tired, understandably, from the night before. Sometimes she wouldn't go at all, but this time, Mom agreed and got us ready to go with her. Almost the whole trailer park had gotten ready. The church was full with people that even some were standing against the back wall and listening through the speakers outside in the garden. It was there where I heard about what was happening around our town. Up until that point, I had always taken a pen or whatever paper I could find to doodle and draw while in church. But this time, it felt important. Mom was holding me under her arm in that last row of the church, a larger crowd behind us.
What we have witnessed in this community.
What we have witnessed, the priest started, in this community can happen to anyone. When evil lurks in the dark, we must not open the door to the devil. We don't open the door for deceit. We don't open the door for hate. We don't open the door. Don't turn on the stove. Don't answer the phone. My work number's on the counter. I mouthed it to myself. Don't
open the door, kid.
I heard from somewhere under the pew. I looked around, confused. No one else had heard it. I heard the voice laugh and fade as I froze for the entire sermon. I could feel Mom's eyes every few minutes, but all I could do was look straight ahead, at the back of the bench in front of us. The little books and flyers on their holders. Only hearing the blended voices made up of whispers and echoes from the man in the distance. The service took longer than it normally did. Maybe that's just how it was in the mornings. But when it was finally over, small groups gathered outside. We joined the one with the owners of the coffee shop. They talked about a man that was spotted by the fields, by the foothills, and then by the trailer park on Etham and Highway 30. The devil, they whispered, was here. Others debated that it was impossible, that it was some lunatic, some freak who lived out in the forest and had nothing better to do than to scare people. The police had gotten involved, though, providing a service to bring people home from the bus stops on Main for those like us, who lived by the lots by the edge of town. The mayor even said that they would add a temporary stop until they sorted it out, but I don't remember it and always had to walk. It took a few months for everything to die down. The church, even though we'd go in the mornings, had less people. The man they had seen roaming around the fields had been caught, and I got a good look at him through a picture, a black and white one from the newspaper. He was younger, not from around here, not anyone I had seen before. But even then, I couldn't get rid of him. The face in the paper was pale, smooth, and small-eyed. There were no black gums, no wide smile. But everyone agreed that it matched the description, and yet I knew that it wasn't the same man, the same wrinkled man from the rain. Not the one that stood outside my window in front of that red light. The one who pretended to be Mom. The one with the voice that haunted me when I tried to go to sleep. And the nightmares, all the same, would start in the room, a familiar voice at the door. "It's me, baby. Mama loves you." And would suddenly turn into a hiss. "Open the door, kid." I never screamed. I tried to never even wake up my mom. And one morning, a trash day, the asphalt still shining from the rain as I finished zipping up my jacket to walk outside, I opened the door, and I saw, right in front of me, a sealed Hot Pocket on the doormat. I bent down and felt that it was still warm. But Mom never bought them, and Dad hadn't called. And I knew that even if the town caught the man that was roaming in the fields, even if the town forgot, that wrinkled man hadn't gone anywhere. That thing outside the door would keep waiting patiently for me. And so it has been. I think of Dad sometimes, how he opened the door without even knowing it. Every time he stepped into Eddie's liquor, he would let something follow him out to the truck, to the house, to me. He was probably the first one to smile at that thing through those red lights, welcoming him. But me, I never opened it. And yet I've carried him, in dreams, in silence, in the ways I wait for morning. But the door, no matter how long he stood there, not through the lure of my mom's voice, the snacks Dad bought, through the rain, through the glass, it waits, in wrinkles and whispers, patiently. But as I shake in its shadow, or in the light that shines in stripes from under it, I will not open. The latch will stay with all the strength I can manage, closed,